We have our rock renders. As you can see, it's different from the ones that I ended with, because I went ahead and changed a few of the shape of the rocks and played with the texture a bit more, because I wasn't really liking the texture, not the texture, just the texture that was in the previous rock. It felt like it was a bit too green for us, our background scene. So I went ahead and changed the texture just a bit to match up with the background that was in the original matte painting. So that's our new look for the rocks, and I think it's sitting well with a matte painting background. So let's so I've opened up the nuke scene from lesson 3. That's the import background, so that we'll build up our rock compass in this nuke script. As you can see, it's all the script is just the same. I haven't changed anything with this. The only thing is that I have brought in a rock render. So I'll be using auto comper. You can find that in Wikipedia, auto comper. So it breaks up your multilayer EXR into its individual passes. So if you go ahead and look for auto comper version 1.2, and you can download it and install it in your own system. So I'll select my the render and tab and look for auto comper, and if I hit that, you see it breaks up your multilayer EXR into its individual passes, like we have diffuse lighting here, specular lighting, reflection, depth, position pass, RGBA. And off the start, I won't be using the position pass. We don't need the beauty. I won't be using the vector, motion vectors probably, but let's just keep it just in case. And the normal pass, I won't use that. And RGB matte, I might use. And then the auto compo gives you unpremult and premult by default, but I don't like to do it this way. So I'll go ahead and delete these two. But what I'll do is I'll also delete this guy, Z-blur, because now we have a new ZD focus node, nuke. And then let's go ahead and merge our rock pass with the background and see what we have. So our rock pass is transparent, because if you look at the last node, we don't have an alpha matte or alpha channel. What we have right now here is either the red or green or blue channel that's acting as alpha. So what I'll do is right after copy depth, I'll go ahead and drop down a copy node. Plug the B here, and I'll drop a dot node, and we'll grab the alpha from our source clip. So then we have our alpha channel that we can pre-multi it with. And now if you look at the background, so it's so now it's properly being multiplied with its alpha channel. And then I'll drop down an unpremult node, and the premult node. So all the general color correction or grading will be done on this node, I mean after the unpremolt node. And we have all our specific path control grading nodes over here. So let's go ahead and save the comp. Listen start. Import rock renders, save. Yes. So first thing, I'll go ahead and do some blacks and whites level match with our with the background, so that the lighting stays the lighting looks like it's sitting in the scene. So I want to match the black levels with our the background. So what I'll do is I'll select my grade for diffuse and go to the black point and try to find no, actually I'll first balance my the rock render, and then what we can do is use the lift and gain from the background to match it according to our background. So first let me balance my the rock. So let's try to grab the darkest portion of a rock. So I'll hold down Control Shift and drag. I don't want to sample it from all the other because if you press Control Shift, the viewer updates. So instead, I'll do is I'll just press Control Shift Alt so the viewer doesn't update, and I'll grab a sample for the black levels. And then I'll go ahead and look for the brightest spot in our image in the rock. Going to the white point and select that area. So that's a rock that's being balanced with its black and white. And what I'll go ahead and do is I'll use the lift and the gain from the background, and then that should help us match our CG render. So I'll go ahead and hit the lift and look for the darkest spot in our background. So that looks like a good one. For this time I want to I'll select the sample pressing Control Shift, because I'll be grabbing the viewer. And then I'll go with the gain and look for the brightest spot. So now you can see our CG render and the background is sitting in the same space. We will have to do a bit more fine tuning with our CG render, because right now the background is way far back, but our CG render is like this area is much more closer to the camera. But the concept with matching the blacks and the whites is when we increase our gain, you'll see the black and the whites of our CG render and the background render is gaining the gain the same way. See, all the darks, they are gaining up altogether. So now we can see that the blacks are matched. Now what we can do is I can go ahead and go to my gain and do further tuning. Just eyeballing it. And then you can play with the gamma. So let's say because we haven't touched our the main character, so I think it's much better if I just turn off the actual source plate, and let's just first work with the background and the rock pass. So now we can see the difference. That's our raw render, and that's our blacks matched. We can go ahead and grade our spec pass, but I'd say by default the spec is looking pretty okay. But let's in case in the future if I need more specular, then I can go ahead and bump up the specularness. The auto compo also takes our depth channel. It gives us a control for the depth, so that we can control the depth values. So if I go ahead and look at the depth, you see right now it's there's no information. There is information, but you can't really visualize it. But if you reduce the gain, you can see there is some information there. So what I'll do is I'll take the multiply on the grade node on the depth channel, and with the multiply node I'll try to balance it. So let's say that's balanced, and the auto compo, what it does is it takes it and copies the z depth to its own channel. So now if I look at from this view and then go to my z depth, so here you see the new depth channel that's piped in is much more balanced, and we can visualize what's going on. Same thing that we can do is over here, if you enable postage stamp, you can see that's balanced. But if you disable that, there's no it looks empty. So and now, so all our grading will be done after the unpremult node. Unpremultiplication and premult is also it's also a bit huge topic, but what it does is unpremult takes its alpha and unpremultiplies it, so that later on after you grade, you pre-multiply it with its own alpha, and it gives you a proper result. There are some cases where you see like a black, let's say this image is already it already is multiplied with its own alpha, and what happens is people, they do another operation of pre-multiplication, and then what happens is that gives you this black halo, or like a black edge on the CG render. So if you can see, if you disable, enable, you see there is an extension of the edge. That's because of double pre-multiplication. So it's always good to unpre-multiply your alpha channel, and then do your grading, and then pre-multiply it. So first grade, I'll go ahead and drop this, and I'll use the depth channel to grade this, because right now the lighting for the rocks is pretty even all the way to the back. So I'll drop another grade node. I'll take the input from the depth, then I'll balance it so that the gray or the black area is where the effects will be much less, but the white areas will be affected more. So I want to affect the background rocks a bit more. So I'll try to balance the depth so that it's affecting the background rocks more, and I'll use that as our mask, and we'll use the mask RGB red. We'll use the red channel for a mask, because red, green, blue, they're all the same. So now if I exaggerate, you see the grading is happening, but the foreground rocks are not. That's because we're using the depth path to grade our scene. So I'll reset that, and instead of having the background rocks, I want it to be a bit washed out. So I'll just play with the offset, and maybe go ahead and change some colors. So that there is some sort of depth going on in our CG render. The foreground rocks are not affected, but the background rocks are. And then I can again go ahead and drop another grade node, and we'll use the same depth, but this time we'll invert the grade. Or I can leave that, because that can come in our general grading later on. I'll also go ahead and add an edge blur. Any kind of blur or blurring should always be done after the pre-mult node, because there's no point in blurring the edges before the pre-mult, because all it does is it creates a new alpha channel, and then that gives you weird result, because you want to apply blur to the whole image, not just the alpha channel. So I'll go ahead and put a very small amount, like just to blend in. 1.8 looks good. And then lastly, we'll add a ZD focus. Remember, we have our depth channel, so math, we'll use depth, and then we can pick this focal point and put it, let's say I want to focus here. And increase the maximum size to 25 and minimum size to yeah, with the ZD focus, I'll have to animate that because our camera will be rack focusing towards the far background. So I've already checked the image sequence for our if I see, so by sorry, by frame 50, when she's already lowering her hands, I want the focusing to head towards the background. So before I animate that, I'll instead first animate a background. So I'll go to my frame 50, and on my background, that's a background, I'll put in a value of 16 and set a key, and then I'll go to frame 150 and put it down to 1 or 1.5 so that it's much more soft. Yeah, 0.8 is good as long as it's not sharp. And then we can look at our animation for the focus for the background. So that's working. And then I'll go ahead and do the same for our foreground character. So frame 50, I want her to be on in focus, so I'll put it to 0, or maybe just a little bit, just a bit of blur, so that she's also not that sharp. And then by all the way, and then on frame 50, I'll go ahead and change it to 16, or just a bit more, 18. And let's preview if because what we have done is just done it in reverse. Frame 50 to 150, it goes to blur, and it focuses towards the background, and the same thing for this defocus, where she's in foreground, she's in focus, but by the time frame 150, she gets out of focus. So it's the same thing, but it's in reverse. So let's preview that. The defocusing, it works great. I'd say it's synchronized, because after frame 50 the spaceships will gradually be in focus. I suggest using Z defocus instead of defocus, but for the sake of this tutorial I'm using defocus because it's much faster, and the defocus is much more accurate, but it's a bit processor intensive, so it takes longer to render frames. So I'll use the defocus for the training purpose, and then I'll disable her for now. And then for the rocks, then with the Z defocus, yeah, I'm using Z defocus only on the rock pass because I want it to look pretty. So with the Z defocus, let's set up our focal plane first and play with the depth of field. So the red portion is in front of the camera, green is in focus, and blue is far background. That's out of focus. Let's say that much is fine, and then I want it to be bladed. 5 blade is fine, no gamma or bloom for me. So now you can see the Z defocus is working and it's focused on this rock. And I'll do the same for the rock. I'll increase the size because right now the far background rocks are not getting blur enough like the actual the main background. So I'll go ahead and increase that to, let's say, yeah, I think 15. Let's round it to 16. And then I'll set a key here for the focal plane because that's in focus right now, and then I'll go to frame 150 and move it to the far one. And then this is just a reference point for our focal point to defocus our foreground rocks, but what I'll also do is I'll drop another defocus set to 1, and then let me first preview this animation for the focal plane first, and then we can defocus this rock also, because this will also be out of focus because our main focus region is around this area where the ship's gonna come in, right in between these rocks and the background. So let me just see a preview. I'll go to proxy mode so that it's faster. I think I'll defocus. Sorry. Yeah, I think animation for defocus is working fine. Let me just run the few frames just to look at it from the beginning. And I think the animation is fine. I'm getting some weird noise around the defocus area. Maybe because of the proxy mode, but when we come towards the end, I think we might change it. But as overall, I think our shot is working. Our rock pass, and now we just have to drop in our character on the main plate, and look, her color is not matching, but I think I'll go ahead and try to do a very quick grade. I will pre-mult it with RGB alpha and just try to bring it to in the same space. This is just for a quick preview. Yeah, look at the end frame. I think it's fine. We might have to match the shadows of her, and also instead of instead of applying the edge blur here, I think I'll delete that and do an edge detect, because I want the rock to be blurred with the background. I'll do an edge detect and channel only alpha. Go with threshold. Just blow it a little bit, so that this will act as our matte for the edge blur that we'll do, or the blur that we'll do. So we'll use that as an alpha. So now if you apply blow, it only blows the edge, and it's blending with the background. There's no there's no steppiness. So I'll just go and find a good value. 1.3 pixel. Look at the other rocks. I'm getting a halo effect. Yeah, I think that's because of our that grading, but I think it's fine because that also it's working like a light wrap. It's in focus. Sorry, I have to activate. So these are out of focus, and then the background is in focus. So yeah, I think I'm happy with the animation for the defocus. And also I'll drop a crop node towards the end. That'll be the end of pipe, so that it crops all the extra pixels that's outside of the bounding box. It gives us much more faster calculation. And let me do a frame cycle with everything in it. I'll come back when I finish my frame cycle. And that's our frame cycle render. I think the rocks are sitting in pretty well, but we'll have to when she moves forward, this rock is being is not being occluded. For that, we can either create a roto, which is a very easy fix, which we'll do it later towards the end. But in general, I think this the rock is pretty much properly graded. Looking at it, I think maybe our foreground rocks can have a little bit more contrast, because right now they look very dull. But for the far background rocks, I think they are pretty much okay, sitting well. And the defocus is working pretty well, just like how I naturally should work. Yep, I think that's good enough for our first pass. Next step would be to bring in the ship renders and do the comping process for the ship as well. They'll be just generally same techniques. So let's go ahead and in the next class let's bring in our ship and do the comp for the ship as well. Thank you.